The ancient ice of Aegis 9 had remained undisturbed for millennia, until humanity arrived. Even now, as Lieutenant Kara Trent's boots crunched across the crystalline surface, she could feel the planet resisting her presence. The wind howled across the barren expanse, carrying ice particles that stung any exposed skin like microscopic needles. Her breath materialized as dense clouds, before being whipped away by the relentless gale. Argus Update Environmental Scan. Kara commanded, her voice steady, despite the bone-chilling cold that penetrated even her advanced thermal suit. Ambient temperature holding at -73°C. Lieutenant, the artificial intelligence responded through her helmet's comm system. Ice thickness, approximately 42 meters at this location. Biosignatures detected at depth. Probability of Leviathan presence 87%. Kara nodded, surveying the endless white horizon. In the distance, the floating research station Trident hovered 300 meters above the ice, its anti-gravity engines emitting a low, constant hum that had become the soundtrack to their mission. The year 2375 had brought humanity to the furthest reaches of the galaxy, but it had not solved their most fundamental problem, the need for energy. That's why she was here. That's why they were all here. Squad status, she demanded, turning to face the 5 other members of her elite team, spread out in defensive formation behind her. Sergeant Raul Ortiz, her second-in-command, stepped forward. His dark eyes reflected the blue-white glare of the ice world. All systems operational, Lieutenant. Drilling equipment is prepped and the team is ready to descend on your mark. Kara studied her oldest friend's face through his helmet visor. They had trained together on Luna Base, risen through the ranks side by side. But lately, she had noticed a hesitation in him, a questioning look whenever she pushed the boundaries of their mission parameters. Dr. Melan is requesting to speak with you before we begin extraction. Ortiz added, his tone carefully neutral. Kara suppressed a sigh. The xenobiologist had been a thorn in her side since their arrival on Aegis 9 3 weeks ago. While Kara's mission was clear, locate and extract Hybrox from the Leviathan creatures dwelling beneath the ice, Dr. Melan seemed determined to study the beasts rather than hunt them. Tell her I'll meet her at the drill site, Kara responded. We're on a timetable. Ortiz nodded and relayed the message through his comm. The rest of the team specialists, Jean Rodriguez Novak and Williams, were already moving toward the designated extraction point, hauling equipment designed specifically for this mission. As Kara watched them work, she couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders more heavily than the reinforced armor she wore. Earth's energy crisis had reached a breaking point. The discovery of Hybrox, an element found only in the skeletal structure of the Leviathan species, had changed everything. A single gram could power a city for a month. The entirety of her mission was simple: bring back enough to save their civilization from collapse. But nothing about the execution of that mission had been simple so far. The drill site had been marked with thermal beacons that pulsed with crimson light against the ice. By the time Kara arrived, her team had already begun setup procedures, assembling the massive thermal drill that would cut through the frozen crust to the dark ocean below. Dr. Melan stood apart from the others, her slender frame dwarfed by her environmental suit. Despite being in her 50s, the scientist moved with the energy of someone half her age, constantly taking readings and making notations on her wrist-mounted datapad. Lieutenant, she acknowledged as Kara approached. There was no warmth in her voice. I need to register my objections to this operation once again. Noted, Dr. Melan. As they were the previous 7 times, Kara replied, keeping her voice level. But unless you have new information that affects mission parameters, we're proceeding as planned. The scientist's eyes narrowed behind her visor. I've completed analysis of the tissue samples we collected last week. These creatures are not just animals, Lieutenant. They show signs of complex neural structures, possible sentience. The cellular regeneration capabilities alone are exactly why their Hybrox concentration is so high, Kara interrupted. I've read your reports, Doctor. Fascinating material. But my orders haven't changed. We're talking about potentially killing a sentient species for fuel. We're talking about saving billions of lives on Earth and throughout the Alliance, Kara countered. The Planetary Council has reviewed all available data and made their decision. We need the Hybrox. Before Maylan could respond, Argus's voice cut through the comm system. Lieutenant, detecting unusual seismic activity, approximately 3 kilometers from your position. Pattern does not match previously recorded Leviathan movements. Kara frowned. Natural tectonic activity. Negative. Reading energy signatures consistent with propulsion systems. Subterranean approach vectors. A cold that had nothing to do with the environment settled in Kara's stomach. Hostile contact. Unknown, but probability is high. Kara's training kicked in instantly. All units defensive positions. Ortiz, get that drill operating now. Williams Rodriguez, establish perimeter. Zhang Novak, weapons hot. What's happening? Dr. Maylan demanded, her scientific objections momentarily forgotten. We're not alone down here, Kara replied grimly, unholstering her pulse rifle and checking its charge. Argus, alert Trident Station. Request immediate surveillance and backup. Communications being jammed. Lieutenant, the AI responded. Unable to establish connection with Trident. Ortiz jogged to her side, his own weapon already powered up. Drill starting, but it'll take 20 minutes to reach the ocean layer. We may not have 20 minutes, Kara muttered. She switched to team-wide communication. Listen up. Unknown contacts approaching. Could be claim jumpers, could be something worse. Either way, we protect the drill until we reach the extraction depth. Form defensive circle 10-meter radius from the drill core. As her team rushed to comply, Kara felt the genetic modifications in her body responding to the imminent threat. Her heart rate steadied, rather than accelerated. Her vision sharpened, picking out details in the ice terrain that would be invisible to unaugmented humans. The supernatural warrior gene therapy she had received as a Luna Colony military recruit had altered her at a fundamental level, making her stronger, faster, and more lethal than a standard human. The seismic vibrations intensified, now perceptible, even without instruments. The ice beneath their feet began to tremble. Contact in 3, 2, Argus announced. The ice erupted 200 meters away, chunks flying skyward as if a bomb had detonated beneath the surface. But what emerged was far more concerning than any explosive device. A sleek metallic vessel rose from the newly formed hole, its dark hull absorbing, rather than reflecting, the planet's pale light. It wasn't alone. 2, then 3, then 5 more identical craft surfaced in a rough semicircle around Kara's position. Identification, Kara demanded, already knowing Argus wouldn't have an answer. Unknown vessel configuration, the AI confirmed. Not matching any Earth Alliance or registered independent faction designs. The lead vessel's hull split along a previously invisible seam, and a ramp extended to the ice. Figures began to descend, humanoid, but immediately distinguishable from Earth humans. They were taller, with elongated limbs, and a bluish cast to their skin that was visible even at this distance. Their environmental suits were unlike anything Kara had seen before, seeming to flow and adjust with each movement, rather than consisting of discrete pieces. First contact situation, Ortiz whispered beside her. Kara shook her head. No. Look at their formation. That's a military approach pattern. She was proven right, moments later, when the aliens deployed into a precise, offensive-line weapons, clearly visible in their 3-fingered hands. Defensive positions, Kara ordered. Do not fire unless fired upon. Then, lowering her voice, she added to Ortiz, How long on that drill? 17 minutes to break through. Speed it up. That'll compromise structural integrity of the shaft. Do it anyway. Priority is getting to those Leviathans before they do. Because Kara had already figured out what these beings wanted. The same thing her team had come for Hybrox. And they hadn't just stumbled across Kara's team by accident. This was a planned operation. One of the aliens stepped forward from the line, taller than the others with elaborate markings on its suit that suggested rank or status. It raised an object that resembled a small sphere in one hand. "Universal translator," Ortiz guessed. Before Kara could respond, a voice emanated from the sphere, unnaturally flat, but clearly comprehensible. "Earth warriors, you trespass. This world is claimed by the Gorthar Dominion. Depart immediately or face annihilation." Kara felt her team tensing around her fingers, hovering near triggers. She stepped forward, lowering her weapon but keeping it ready. "I am Lieutenant Kara Trent of the Earth Planetary Alliance. Aegis 9 is unclaimed territory under the Galactic Concordat of 2347. We are here on a scientific and resource exploration mission." The alien, clearly, the commander made a gesture that might have been dismissive. "Your treaties mean nothing to the Dominion. We have monitored your activities. You seek the deep-dwelling creatures for their energy material. This resource is now property of Gorthar." Dr. Maylan pushed forward, ignoring Kara's warning glare. "The Leviathans are living beings, not property. They shouldn't be harvested by either of our species." The Gorthar commander's translator remained silent for a moment, as if processing this interruption. Then, "You are correct, Earth scientist. They are living, and soon you will not be." It happened too fast for a warning. The commander's hand moved, and a pulse of energy erupted from the weapon, held in its other hand. Kara shoved Dr. Maylan aside the blast, missing them both by centimeters, and striking the ice behind, instantly vaporizing a meter-wide hole. "Return fire!" Kara shouted, rolling to one knee and squeezing off 3 rapid shots from her pulse rifle. The Gorthar line broke, soldiers diving for cover, as the Earth team's weapons discharged in unison. Chaos erupted across the ice field. Energy bolts crisscrossed the space between the two forces, melting holes in the ancient ice wherever they struck. Kara's team had the advantage of having already established positions, but the Gorthar outnumbered them at least 3-1. "Ortiz drill status," Kara shouted over the comm as she dropped a Gorthar soldier with a precise shot to what she hoped was a vital area. 12 minutes. We've maxed out the thermal capacity." "Not good enough," Kara fired again, ducking as return fire sizzled overhead. "We need to—" Her words died in her throat, as a new tremor shook the battlefield, different from the seismic activity of the Gorthar arrival. Deeper, more primal. Lieutenant Argus's voice was urgent in her ear. "Massive biological signature detected. A Leviathan is responding to the surface disturbance." As if on cue, the ice 15 meters behind the Gorthar line cracked a spiderweb of fractures, spreading with alarming speed. The alien soldiers turned, momentarily distracted from the human threat. The creature that erupted through the surface defied easy description. Leviathan was the only word that came close to capturing its magnitude. At least 50 meters of serpentine body burst upward, ice fragments cascading from armored scales that shifted between midnight blue and Arctic white. Its head was a nightmare of evolutionary efficiency. 3 separate jaws lined with teeth the size of Kara's forearm, sensory appendages that twitched and coiled in the frigid air, and eyes, 6 of them positioned around its skull, that glowed with bioluminescent fury. Both human and Gorthar forces froze at the awesome spectacle. The Leviathan hovered for a moment, as if assessing the tiny beings that had disturbed its domain. Then it opened its triple jaws and emitted a roar that shook the very air, a sound so profound it seemed to bypass the ears entirely and vibrate the bones. The Gorthar commander was the first to recover barking orders in its native language. The alien soldiers redirected their weapons toward the massive creature, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts against its armored hide. Kara saw her opportunity. "Ortiz, get everyone to the drill, Dr. Maylan with me." As the Gorthar focused on the immediate threat of the Leviathan, Kara's team regrouped at the drill site. The massive thermal bore had already cut through 20 meters of ice, the shaft glowing with residual heat. The Leviathans distracted them, but not for long, Kara said, addressing her team, while keeping one eye on the battle unfolding nearby. The creature was proving remarkably resistant to the Gorthar weapons, its armored scales absorbing or deflecting energy blasts with minimal apparent damage. We need to complete our mission before they regroup. The drill's at maximum, Ortiz reported. Any more power and the shaft walls will destabilize. Kara made a quick decision. Novak Williams, stay here and defend the drill. Jean Rodriguez with Ortiz on perimeter defense. Dr. Melan and I are going down early. Down, Melan's eyes widened. The shaft isn't complete, and that's a juvenile Leviathan out there. If the adult specimens detect us in their territory. That's exactly what I'm counting on, Kara interrupted. We need a Leviathan doctor. One just showed up. Now we follow it home. Before anyone could object further, Kara activated her suit's enhanced capabilities. The armor thickened around vital areas, additional insulation and pressure systems engaged, and propulsion units extended from the back and limbs. Lieutenant, this is reckless, Ortiz protested. The shaft is unstable and we don't know what's waiting down there. Kara met his gaze directly. The mission is to secure Hybrox. That hasn't changed. Defend this position until we return, or you receive orders from Trident. She turned to Dr. Melan. Your suit has the same capabilities. Activate the deep dive protocol. The scientist hesitated, then reluctantly engaged her suit's expanded functions. This is against all established first contact protocols with potentially sentient species. Noted, Kara replied tersely. Now let's move before our blue friends finish playing with their new pet. As if to punctuate her words, the Leviathan emitted another earth-shaking roar. The Gorthar forces were regrouping, and several had noticed the humans' movements. They're coming back, Zhang warned, firing a suppressing burst toward the advancing aliens. Hold them off, Kara ordered. She approached the drill shaft, the heat still radiating from its partly molten walls. Doctor, stay close to me. The descent will be rapid. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Kara activated her suit's propulsion and dove headfirst into the shaft. The initial blast of heat was intense, even through her reinforced armor. The thermal drill had superheated the ice, creating a smooth tunnel that descended into darkness. Her suit's lights automatically engaged, illuminating the translucent blue walls, rushing past as she controlled her descent with short bursts from her propulsion units. A quick glance confirmed that Dr. Melan was following her expression, a mixture of terror and scientific fascination visible through her helmet visor. Argus, Kara called to her AI assistant. Depth, 28 meters and descending, Lieutenant. Estimated ice-ocean boundary in approximately 16 meters. Structural integrity of the shaft. Degrading. Recommend minimizing physical contact with walls. Kara increased her descent speed, noting with concern the widening cracks appearing in the ice around them. The shaft wouldn't hold much longer, and if it collapsed while they were still inside. Approaching boundary layer, Argus announced. Prepare for transition in 3, 2, 1. The bottom of the shaft suddenly opened into nothingness. One moment Kara was surrounded by ice. The next, she was suspended in frigid water that extended in all directions, illuminated only by her suit lights. The light revealed a vast undersea world, rock formations, covered in strange phosphorescent growths, massive ice pillars extending downward from the frozen ceiling, and darkness so profound that it seemed solid. Dr. Melan descended beside her, automatically activating her suit's aquatic adaptations. The propulsion units reconfigured for underwater movement, their mechanical whine dampened by the surrounding liquid. Incredible! The scientist breathed her scientific enthusiasm, temporarily overriding her fear. The bioluminescent organisms alone are like nothing in our databases. Focus, Doctor, Kara reminded her. We're here for the Leviathan. Argus, can you track the creature that surfaced? Affirmative. Biological signature indicates it has returned to the water, approximately 200 meters from your position. It appears to be moving deeper. Follow it, Kara ordered, adjusting her propulsion to move in the indicated direction. But maintain safe distance. As they descended further into the alien ocean, the true scale of Aegis IX's underwater realm became apparent. What had appeared at first to be simply a layer of water beneath the ice revealed itself as an entire ecosystem complex, ancient and utterly alien. Schools of small translucent creatures darted away from their lights. Larger predators resembling nothing so much as living crystal formations watched warily from the shadows. But most impressive were the structures that began to appear as they followed the juvenile Leviathan's trail. Vast formations that initially seemed natural, but upon closer inspection displayed too much symmetry, too much purpose. "Are those buildings?" Kara asked, slowing her descent to study the enormous shapes looming in the gloom. Dr. Maylan was already recording everything, her scientific instruments working at maximum capacity. "Not exactly. They appear to be growth structures like coral reefs or termite mounds on Earth, but on a massive scale. The Leviathans may have created them." "Sentient," Kara murmured, remembering the scientist's earlier assertion. "I've been trying to tell you," Maylan replied, a note of vindication in her voice. "These creatures aren't just animals. They're intelligent, organized. Harvesting them for Hybrox would be necessary," Kara finished firmly. "Earth needs this resource, Doctor. Intelligence doesn't change that fact." Before Maylan could respond, Argus issued an urgent alert. "Multiple large biological signatures converging on your position. Recommend immediate evasive action." The water around them vibrated with subsonic pulses, communication signals between the approaching Leviathans. The juvenile they had been following had led them directly into the heart of a Leviathan gathering. "Back to the surface," Kara ordered, already reversing her propulsion direction. "We've found their habitat. We can return with a full team and proper—" Her command was cut short as a massive shape emerged from the darkness below. Unlike the juvenile that had appeared on the surface, this Leviathan was truly colossal, at least 200 meters from head to tail. Its armored scales were scarred with the marks of ancient battles, and the bioluminescent patterns that ran along its flanks pulsed with complex sequences that suggested language rather than mere display. Most importantly, Kara could see what they had come for. Along the creature's spine, visible through gaps in its outer armor, ran a structure that glowed with the unmistakable blue-green radiance of Hybrox. The energy source was integrated directly into the Leviathan's skeleton, forming what appeared to be its central nervous system. "Perfect specimen," she whispered her mission objectives, overriding her instinctive awe. "Lieutenant." Dr. Maylan's voice was tight with fear. "We need to retreat. Now. There are at least 5 adult Leviathans approaching, and they're exhibiting defensive behavior patterns." Kara knew the scientist was right. They were outmatched, out of position, and their team on the surface was still engaged with the Gorthar forces. But she couldn't ignore what she had discovered. The concentration of Hybrox in a single adult Leviathan could power Earth's grid for years. Her decision was made for her, as the waters suddenly churned with new movement, not biological, but mechanical. Gorthar vessels specially designed for underwater operation descended through multiple holes they had created in the ice. At least 10 of them, each carrying troops and collection equipment. "They're here for the same thing we are," Kara realized, and they brought a full harvesting team. The Leviathans reacted immediately to the new threat. The massive adult specimen closest to them emitted a subsonic pulse that Kara felt in her very bones, even through her suit. The other Leviathans responded, forming a defensive pattern around what appeared to be a central structure, possibly a nursery for juvenile specimens. "The Gorthar will slaughter them all," Dr. Maylan said, horror evident in her voice. "Their entire species extinct for fuel." For the first time since landing on Aegis 9, Kara felt uncertain. Her mission was clear: secure Hybrox for Earth by any means necessary. But watching the Leviathans organize to protect their young, witnessing their intelligence and social structure, complicated that straightforward objective. The choice was taken from her hands as the Gorthar vessels opened fire on the Leviathan pod. Energy weapons more powerful than those their ground troops carried lanced through the water, striking the creature's armored hides. The Leviathans roared in pain, and fury retaliating with surprising speed for beings of their size. One massive specimen charged directly into a Gorthar vessel, its triple jaws closing around the craft's midsection and crushing it like paper. Suited Gorthar soldiers spilled out, some already dead from the pressure, others firing desperately as they were swallowed by the darkness. "We have to help them," Dr. Maylan insisted, watching the battle unfold. "Help who?" Kara asked, genuinely uncertain. "The Leviathans. The Gorthar will exterminate them for the Hybrox. At least our mission had protocols limits on harvesting. They'll take everything." Kara made her decision. "Argus, contact Ortiz. Tell him to bring the team down through the drill shaft. Arm for underwater combat. And alert Trident Station if they haven't already noticed that we're in a battle down here. Communications still jammed, Lieutenant. The Gorthar are broadcasting wide-spectrum interference." Kara cursed. "Then we'll have to handle this ourselves." She turned to Dr. Maylan. "Stay hidden. Document everything. I'm going to try to even the odds." Before the scientist could protest, Kara activated her suit's combat enhancements. Additional armor plates shifted into place. Weapon systems emerged from concealed compartments, and her visual display filled with tactical data. As one of Earth's elite moonborn soldiers, her suit was several generations beyond standard military issue, incorporating technologies that were still classified. She propelled herself toward the nearest Gorthar vessel, which was targeting a wounded Leviathan juvenile. The craft was sleek and predatory, with multiple weapon emplacements and a transparent command module where Kara could see Gorthar officers directing the attack. Her suit's targeting system locked onto a vulnerable joint in the vessel's hull, where the weapon system connected to the main body. 2 quick pulses from her gauntlet-mounted plasma cutter severed the connection. The weapon pod spiraled away, its energy discharge dissipating harmlessly in the water. The vessel immediately turned its attention to this new threat's secondary weapons, swiveling to track her position. Kara dove beneath the craft, using its bulk as a shield against the other Gorthar vessels in the area. She placed a magnetic charge on the craft's propulsion system and kicked away, hard putting distance between herself and the imminent explosion. The detonation sent a shockwave through the water. The Gorthar vessel listed to one side, emergency systems flickering as it struggled to maintain buoyancy. Most importantly, it was no longer a threat to the Leviathans. But Kara had revealed her position. 2 more Gorthar craft turned toward her, their weapons charging. She was outnumbered and outgunned, with no backup and limited ammunition for her suit's weapon systems. Just as the Gorthar vessels prepared to fire, the water between them erupted as an adult Leviathan charged through its massive body, creating a turbulence that threw the Gorthar targeting systems off. Whether by coincidence or design, the creature had just saved her life. The battle expanded around her Leviathans, engaging the Gorthar vessels with surprising coordination. They were intelligent enough to recognize that the humans were not currently attacking them, focusing their fury on the more immediate threat. Kara used the confusion to disable 2 more Gorthar vessels, targeting their propulsion and weapon systems, rather than trying to destroy them outright. Her goal wasn't to kill the aliens, but to prevent the wholesale slaughter of the Leviathan pod. As she maneuvered through the underwater battlefield, she caught sight of a larger Gorthar command vessel descending to the center of the conflict. Unlike the attack craft, this vessel was bulkier, clearly designed for resource extraction rather than combat. Mechanical arms extended from its hull, ending in savage cutting tools designed to harvest Hybrox directly from living Leviathans. And standing visible behind the craft's main viewport was a Gorthar, unlike the others, taller, with more elaborate suit markings. Even at this distance, Kara recognized the commander from the surface confrontation. Their eyes met across the battlefield, human and alien, and a moment of recognition passed between them. This was no longer just about resources. It was a test of will. The Gorthar commander made a gesture, and the harvester craft accelerated toward the largest Leviathan, the ancient bull, that appeared to lead the pod. The cutting arms extended their diamond-edged blades, glinting in the bioluminescent glow. Kara reacted without thinking. She pushed her suit's propulsion to maximum, shooting through the water on an intercept course. Warning indicators flashed across her display as her systems approached critical limits, but she ignored them. She couldn't outgun the harvester craft, but she could disrupt its attack. She collided with one of the mechanical arms just as it was about to close around the Leviathan's spine. The impact sent shudders through her suit damage alerts, blaring in her ears. But the arm's trajectory was knocked off course, its cutting blade missing the creature's vulnerable spine by meters. The Leviathan, sensing the intervention, turned its massive head. 6 enormous eyes focused on Kara, an intelligence beyond human comprehension, assessing her in an instant. Then, remarkably, it positioned itself between her and the Gorthar harvester, its armored body serving as a shield. The Gorthar commander was visible through the viewport, gesturing furiously to its crew. The harvester's remaining arms reoriented, targeting both Kara and the Leviathan's exposed flank. Lieutenant Dr. Maylan's voice came through the comm, strained with urgency. "Our team is coming through the shaft. Ortiz is leading them." Kara glanced upward and saw human figures descending through the ice layer, their suit lights cutting through the gloom. The reinforcements were welcome, but they were still outnumbered by the Gorthar forces. The battle reached a new intensity as the human team engaged the Gorthar vessels. Energy weapons and harpoon launchers specialized for underwater combat crisscrossed the darkness. The Leviathans continued their own assault, their massive bodies becoming living weapons as they rammed and crushed Gorthar craft. Kara focused on the harvester vessel. If she could neutralize the Gorthar command structure, the rest of their forces might withdraw. She launched herself toward the craft, dodging debris and energy pulses. The harvester's defenses were more robust than the attack vessels. Her initial strikes against its hull barely left scratches. She needed a more vulnerable target. The answer came to her as she observed the vessel's cutting arms, attempting to latch onto passing Leviathans. The joints where the arms connected to the main body were reinforced, but still represented weak points in the overall structure. Kara positioned herself near one of the arms, waiting for it to extend fully as it reached for a juvenile Leviathan swimming past. When the arm locked into its maximum extension, she fired her suit's last remaining explosive charge directly into the joint. The explosion severed the arm completely. More importantly, it breached the harvester's hull integrity. Warning lights flashed across the vessel's surface as emergency systems engaged. The Gorthar commander appeared at the viewport again, its alien features contorted in what Kara interpreted as rage. It made a decisive gesture, and the harvester vessel began to ascend rapidly toward the ice ceiling, abandoning the battle. Seeing their command structure retreat, the remaining Gorthar vessels began to disengage as well, withdrawing to defensive formations as they followed the harvester toward the surface. "They're retreating," Ortiz confirmed over the comm as he maneuvered to Kara's position. "But they'll be back with reinforcements." Kara nodded grimly. "We've only bought time. They want the Hybrox as badly as Earth does." The Leviathans, sensing the withdrawal of the immediate threat, began to gather around their wounded. Kara watched as they used their bioluminescent appendages to examine injuries, communal behavior, that further confirmed Dr. Maylan's assessment of their intelligence. "What now?" Lieutenant Ortiz asked. "Our mission objectives remain the same. Earth needs the Hybrox." Kara stared at the Leviathan pod, particularly the ancient bull that had protected her during the battle. Its 6 eyes were still watching her unfathomable alien intelligence, assessing the smaller beings in its domain. "We complete the mission," Kara finally said. "But not like this. Not like the Gorthar would." She outlined her plan quickly. Unlike the Gorthar, who had come to harvest indiscriminately, they would take only what Earth absolutely needed, and they would do it with precision rather than slaughter. Dr. Maylan, who had joined them during the explanation, looked skeptical. "You're still talking about extracting Hybrox from living beings." "From one living being," Kara corrected. "The oldest, largest specimen, and we do it surgically, not fatally." Over the next hour, as the Leviathan pod gradually accepted the human's non-threatening presence, Kara's team prepared. Specialist Zhang, who had medical training in addition to combat expertise, modified their collection equipment for surgical precision rather than bulk harvesting. Dr. Mei Lan, despite her moral objections, provided critical information about Leviathan anatomy based on the scans she had been taking since their arrival on Aegis 9. The Hybrox was concentrated most densely in the creature's spinal structures, but smaller deposits existed throughout their bodies, particularly in areas that could regenerate. If we take only from these regenerative zones, she explained, indicating points on a holographic model, the Leviathan could potentially regrow the lost material over time. Kara studied the model. Not enough yield. Earth needs more than those deposits could provide. She pointed to the central spine. We need the primary source. That would kill it. Not if we're precise. Kara turned to Zhang. Could you extract a section, just one vertebral segment, without fatal damage? The specialist considered the scans. Possibly. These creatures have remarkable healing capabilities. If we could isolate a single vertebra without damaging the neural pathways. It was a risk. A terrible risk. But Kara saw no alternative that would fulfill both their mission objectives and preserve the Leviathan species. The most difficult part was approaching the ancient bull Leviathan. Despite its earlier protective behavior, the creature was understandably wary. Kara decided to approach alone, her weapon systems powered down and her suit's lights dimmed to their lowest setting. She moved slowly through the water hands, visible and empty. The massive creature watched her approach, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what seemed like communication attempts. I wish we could understand you, Kara said, knowing her words couldn't be comprehended, but hoping her non-threatening posture might be. We need your help. Just a small part of you. And we'll protect your kind from the others who would take everything. Whether through some impossible understanding or simple curiosity, the Leviathan remained stationary as Kara approached. When she was within meters of its enormous head, it extended a sensory appendage toward her, a tendril of living tissue that pulsed with inner light. Instinctively, Kara reached out her hand. The appendage touched her suit's gauntlet, wrapping gently around it. A strange sensation passed through her, even through the armor. Not quite communication, but a sense of ancient awareness, recognizing her presence. Lieutenant Ortiz's urgent voice broke the moment. Gorthar vessels returning much larger force than before. Kara pulled back from the Leviathan, which had already begun to react to the new threat. The water vibrated with subsonic pulses as the pod alerted each other to the danger. Change of plans, Kara announced to her team. We don't have time for surgery. Ortiz, get the team back to the surface and contact Trident for emergency extraction. Dr. Mei Lan, go with them. What about you? Ortiz demanded. I'm completing the mission. Kara activated her suit's most advanced systems capabilities that had never been field-tested beyond simulation. The armor reconfigured additional layers emerging from subspace storage energy fields, forming around her limbs. The Titan Mark V protocol. Ortiz recognized with alarm. Kara, that's not stable yet. The power draw alone could... Is authorized under extreme circumstances, she finished. These qualify. Now go. As her team reluctantly began their ascent to the surface, Kara turned toward the approaching Gorthar fleet. The harvester vessel was back, but now it was accompanied by at least 20 combat craft. And based on their formation, they weren't interested in careful extraction anymore. They had come to take everything regardless of the cost. The Leviathan pod was gathering for a final defense positioning, their young at the center of a living fortress of adult specimens. But Kara could see it wouldn't be enough. The Gorthar weapons could eventually penetrate even their armored hides. Her suit completed its transformation, the Titan protocol fully engaged. Energy coursed through her body, the suit systems amplifying her genetically enhanced strength to levels that would have been impossible for an unmodified human to control. Warning indicators flashed across her display: structural integrity concerns, power fluctuations, potential neural feedback, but she ignored them all. The ancient bull Leviathan positioned itself at the front of the pod's defense, directly in the path of the oncoming Gorthar fleet. Its size dwarfed even the largest harvester vessel, but the alien's energy weapons were already targeting its vulnerable points. Kara propelled herself to the Leviathan's side, her suit's enhanced capabilities, allowing her to move through the water with unprecedented speed. She placed herself between the creature and the lead Gorthar vessels. "I'll help you," she said to the Leviathan, knowing it couldn't understand her words, but hoping it might sense her intent. "But I need something in return." The creature's eyes, fixed on her 6 glowing orbs that seemed to penetrate through her suit, through her flesh, to her very essence. Then, in a movement that couldn't possibly be coincidence, it lowered its massive head, exposing the armored spine that ran along its back. Kara didn't hesitate. She launched herself upward, landing on the Leviathan's back. The creature's spine was protected by overlapping armored plates, but between them, she could see the glow of Hybrox beneath the energy source that had brought both humans and Gorthar to this frozen world. The Gorthar fleet opened fire. Energy beams sliced through the water, most directed at the Leviathan, but several targeting Kara specifically. The creature moved with surprising agility, dodging some blasts, while its armored hide absorbed others. Kara activated her suit's most dangerous weapon, a vibrational energy blade designed to cut through any known material. The blade extended from her right gauntlet, humming with power, that made the water around it boil despite the freezing temperature. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the Leviathan. Then she plunged the blade between the armored plates directly into the creature's spine. The Leviathan roared a sound so powerful it sent shockwaves through the water, temporarily disrupting the Gorthar targeting systems. But it didn't try to dislodge Kara. Whether through some impossible understanding or simply stunned by pain, it remained relatively still as she worked. With surgical precision enhanced by her suit systems, Kara cut through the connective tissue around a single vertebra. The Hybrox within glowed brighter as it was exposed, pulsing with energy that could power Earth's cities for months. The Gorthar fleet was regrouping their weapons, recharging. At their center, visible through the Harvester's viewport, the commander watched with what Kara interpreted as rage and disbelief. A single human was accomplishing what their entire fleet had failed to do. With a final cut, Kara separated the vertebra from the Leviathan's spine. The creature shuddered beneath her, a tremor running the length of its massive body. But the damage was controlled precise. The neural pathways remained intact, the blood loss minimal. Kara secured the Hybrox-filled bone segment in a containment field generated by her suit. The vertebra was enormous, nearly 2 meters long, and weighing what would have been hundreds of kilograms on the surface, but in the water, and with her enhanced strength, she could manage it. The Gorthar commander must have realized what she had accomplished. The harvester vessel surged forward, mechanical arms, extending to capture both Kara and her precious cargo. But the ancient Leviathan wasn't finished. Despite its wound, it turned with surprising speed, positioning itself between Kara and the approaching vessel. Its triple jaws opened bioluminescent patterns, flaring with what could only be described as fury. The other Leviathans joined their leader, forming a living wall that advanced toward the Gorthar fleet. Even with their superior technology, the aliens were forced to retreat before the coordinated assault of creatures that each massed more than their largest vessel. Kara took advantage of the chaos to begin her ascent toward the surface, the Hybrox vertebra secure in her suit's containment field. The extraction had been successful, but she wasn't safe yet. Her suit's power levels were critical after maintaining the Titan protocol, and the added burden of the vertebra was pushing her systems to their limits. Halfway to the surface, her propulsion units began to fail. Warning indicators flooded her display as systems shut down to preserve core life support functions. Her ascent slowed, then stopped entirely. "Argus," she called to her AI assistant. "Reroute all non-essential power to propulsion." "Calculating," the AI responded. "Warning, diverting power from life support cushioning. Impact trauma likely upon surfacing." "Do it." The suit's propulsion sputtered back to life, pushing her upward through the frigid water. The ice ceiling loomed above the drill shaft, a distant pinpoint of light. As she approached, the shaft movement in her peripheral vision caught her attention. One of the Gorthar vessels had broken off from the main fleet and was pursuing her, closing rapidly. Her suit had no remaining offensive capabilities, all power diverted to propulsion and maintaining the containment field around the vertebra. She was defenseless. Just as the vessel came within striking distance, a shadow passed overhead. The juvenile Leviathan that had first appeared on the surface descended through the ice, positioning itself between Kara and her pursuer. It wasn't as large as the adults, but its presence was enough to make the Gorthar vessel hesitate. That moment of hesitation was all Kara needed. She reached the drill shaft and began her final ascent, the weight of the vertebra still threatening to overcome her failing propulsion. Lieutenant Ortiz's voice came through her comm. "We've reached the surface. Trident has deployed defensive measures against the Gorthar. What's your status?" "Coming up," Kara managed her breath, labored as her suit struggled to maintain pressure and oxygen levels. "With the Hybrox. Have extraction ready." "Your vitals are critical. We're sending a recovery team down to—" "No time," she interrupted. "Gorthar right behind me. Get ready to pull me out." With a final surge from her propulsion units, Kara reached the top of the shaft and burst onto the surface. The sudden transition from water to air was jarring her suit's dampening systems offline due to power diversion. She landed hard on the ice, the impact sending shockwaves of pain through her body despite her enhanced physiology. The vertebra's containment field flickered, but held the precious Hybrox still secure. The surface was a battlefield. Trident Station had deployed its defensive systems, energy cannons firing at Gorthar vessels emerging from the ice. The remainder of her team had established a defensive perimeter around the drill site, exchanging fire with Gorthar ground forces. And there, standing apart from his troops, was the Gorthar commander. Their eyes met across the battlefield, recognition and a strange respect passing between them. "You have taken what you came for," the commander's translator sphere projected. "One piece where we would have harvested all." Kara struggled to her feet, the vertebra's containment field humming beside her. "Enough to meet our needs without destroying a species. You would have left nothing." "Efficiency," the commander stated, as if this explained everything. "But unexpected, restraint from humans. Stories tell that your kind takes without limit." "Not this time," Kara replied. The Gorthar commander assessed the battlefield where its forces were gradually being pushed back by the combined fire from Kara's team and Trident's defenses. A decision formed in its alien features. "The Dominion withdraws," it announced. "This battle, not claimed to Aegis 9. "Tell your superiors," Kara said, her voice carrying across the ice, "that Earth has established research rights on this planet. Any further harvesting attempts will be considered an act of war." The commander made a gesture that might have been acknowledgement or dismissal. "Until our paths cross again, Lieutenant Kara Trent of Earth." As the Gorthar forces retreated to their vessels, Kara finally allowed herself to feel the full extent of her exhaustion and injuries. Her suit was operating on minimal power, barely maintaining life support functions. Ortiz reached her side, supporting her, as her knees threatened to buckle. "Mission accomplished, I see." Kara nodded toward the vertebra in its containment field. "One segment, surgically removed. The Leviathan will live." Dr. Mei Lan approached cautiously, her scientific instruments already scanning the massive bone structure. "Remarkable. The Hybrox concentration is even higher than our projections. This single vertebra contains enough energy to power Earth's grid for nearly a year." "And the Leviathan?" Kara asked. The scientist consulted her readings. "Based on what I observed, it should survive. These creatures have extraordinary regenerative capabilities. It may even grow a replacement vertebra, given time." Kara nodded satisfaction, mixing with the pain and exhaustion. "Then we've completed our mission. Earth gets its energy source and the Leviathans keep their lives." As her team prepared for extraction back to Trident Station, Kara limped to the edge of the hole in the ice created by her emergence. The dark water below was still the battle, having moved deeper into the ocean. But as she watched, a familiar shape rose toward the surface, the massive head of the ancient bull Leviathan, its 6 eyes glowing with that unfathomable alien intelligence. It regarded her for a long moment, neither threatening nor retreating. Then, with a final pulse of its bioluminescent patterns, it descended back into the depths, returning to its pod and the mysterious existence that humans had only begun to understand. Ortiz joined her at the edge. The stories they'll tell about this mission. Lieutenant Kara Trent, the woman who ripped a Leviathan's spine in two. Kara shook her head. Not ripped, surgically removed. There's a difference. Not in the stories, there won't be, Ortiz replied with a grim smile. The Gorthar are already calling you the spine taker. I heard their communications before they encrypted them. Kara sighed, watching as the ice began to close over the hole. Nature already working to heal the wound in its frozen skin. As long as Earth gets its energy and the Leviathans survive, they can call me whatever they want. 3 weeks later, Kara stood at the observation deck of Trident Station, watching as the final preparations were made for their departure from Aegis 9. The Hybrox vertebra had been carefully packed in a specialized containment unit, ready for transport back to Earth. Dr. Meilon and her scientific team had remained behind, establishing a permanent research outpost to study the Leviathans and ensure no further unauthorized harvesting took place. The Gorthar hadn't returned, but Kara didn't believe for a moment that they had abandoned their interest in Aegis 9's resources. The Earth Alliance had already dispatched additional security forces to protect the research station and the Leviathan population. As Kara gazed out at the endless expanse of ice, a movement caught her attention. A dark shape beneath the frozen surface, massive and familiar. The ancient bull Leviathan, its bioluminescent patterns, visible even through meters of ice. It paced alongside the floating station, 6 eyes tracking her position with impossible precision. Checking on us, Kara murmured. Making sure we're keeping our part of the bargain. The creature couldn't hear her, of course, but it continued to follow the station's shadow on the ice. Dr. Meilon had reported that the wound in its spine was already healing faster than anyone had predicted. The Leviathan showed no signs of permanent disability, moving with the same power and grace it had displayed during the battle with the Gorthar. In the weeks since the extraction, Meilon's team had made remarkable progress in understanding Leviathan communication. The bioluminescent patterns weren't just displays, but a complex language of light and color. The creatures weren't simply intelligent. They possessed a culture, a history encoded in patterns of light, passed from generation to generation. And now, humans were part of that history. The story of the small beings who came from beyond the ice, who fought alongside the Leviathans, against the blue-skinned invaders, who took what they needed, but left life intact. Ortiz joined her at the viewport. Transport's ready. Time to go home. Kara nodded, but didn't immediately move. Do you think we did the right thing, taking the vertebra? Ortiz considered the question carefully. Earth needs the energy. Millions of lives depend on it. And we did it without destroying the Leviathans. That has to count for something. The Gorthar would have taken everything. Kara said more to herself than to Ortiz. Left nothing but corpses floating in that alien sea. That's the difference between us and them. Why we deserve to survive and expand among the stars. Ortiz placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't torture yourself, Kara. You found a solution that worked for everyone. Not everyone, Kara thought, remembering the Leviathan's roar of pain as she cut through its spine. But the alternative had been unthinkable. Either Earth's continued energy crisis or the extinction of an entire sentient species. As she turned to follow Ortiz to the transport, Kara took one last look at the Leviathan, swimming beneath the ice. Its bioluminescent patterns flared briefly, a complex sequence that the translation algorithms couldn't yet decipher. But somehow, Kara felt she understood its meaning. Not forgiveness, these beings were too alien, too ancient for such a human concept. But acknowledgement, recognition, perhaps even a form of respect. Until we meet again, she whispered to the creature, that couldn't hear her words. Then, she walked away toward the transport that would carry her, and the precious vertebra, back to Earth, leaving behind a frozen world where legends were already forming about the human who faced Leviathans and Gorthar alike and emerged victorious. In the depths below, the ancient bull Leviathan returned to its pod a new pattern of light, pulsing along its healing spine. The story of Kara Trent, rendered in bioluminescent language, began to spread through the dark waters of Aegis 9. The human who came not to conquer, but to connect. The spine-taker who took only what was needed, no more. A story that would be told in patterns of light long after humans had forgotten the name Kara Trent, or the frozen world where she had made contact with beings more alien and more familiar than humanity had ever imagined.